I'll be okay. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. It's lovely to see such a full house for our second last session for the year. Before we start, we just want to send our condolences on the passing of Nick van der Merwe, one of our colleagues. He passed away on the 26th of August this year after a long period of poor health. We remember him for his significant contributions to the study of African archaeology, and we will miss him. He attended a lot of these talks. Unfortunately, moving on after that. This is our second last talk for the year. Our last talk is happening in November, and we're trying something a little bit different this year for our end of year session. We are hosting a Christmas market that's going to be sort of in time for little gifts for Christmas time that are archaeology or heritage themed. We're hoping to have students give lightning sessions on the work that they've done this year. And we have a photo competition, which Gemma has sent notices out about. So please check your WhatsApp group and check the Instagram page for information about the Christmas market and the photo competition. With that, I would like to welcome Dr. Motala. He is the academic lead of the Global Digital Heritage Afrika group, a research group based at UCT. For the last 15 years, Siddique has been mapping and researching District 6 and other sites of apartheid forced removals. He conducts transdisciplinary research across history, film and media studies, computer science, education, museum studies, and archival studies. A trained land surveyor, he holds a PhD in education. His research interests include spatio-temporal mapping, 3D heritage preservation, storytelling, posthumanism, and socially just pedagogies in engineering education. Thank you very much, Dr. Motala. Would you like me to dim the light?
Okay, is that better? Great. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Jenna, and thank you to the Archaeology Society for inviting me. It's a great honor. Can I just get an indication of how many archaeologists are here today? Okay, that's terrifying. I'm not an archaeologist, I'm a land surveyor. So please forgive me if I make any mistakes, if I say the wrong thing, if I pronounce it wrong, you can correct me at the end. I'll do my best. So, all right. So today I'm going to be talking in my capacity as Scientific Director of GDHA, Global Digital Heritage Afrika, which, as Jenna said, is a new research group at the University of Cape Town. And we formed in 2024 as the local arm of Global Digital Heritage, which is a nonprofit group dedicated to the digital preservation of heritage. And what I'm going to do is we're going to showcase some of the work that we've done since our formation. I'm joined here by Roshan. Put up your hand, Roshan. Roshan is, I'm sure many of you know him. He's part of GDHA, and he was part of the fantastic Zamani group that many of you might have also worked with in the past. That was really a pioneering project in terms of documenting African heritage in 3D. And yeah, it's also wonderful to see people like Prof. Deacon, Prof. Hall, legends, Mandy, a legend also. I hope to be working with you pretty soon. Okay, so what are our objectives? We have several objectives. The first one is the digital documentation of heritage sites, monuments, landscapes, museum collections. We focus on, but are not restricted to, African heritage. We also conduct multi and transdisciplinary research by working with a diversity of disciplines. And we advocate for communities who were historically silenced. So people like those who were forcibly removed from District 6. The picture on the right there is a picture of one of my students with ex-residents of Die Vlakte, which was an area of forced removal in Stellenbosch. So what's the story? So when telling a story, we can follow specific lines of questioning. A post-colonial lens may ask, what were the omissions in a canonical story? For example, what was the indigenous knowledge that played a role in the development of something, like Khoi words in Afrikaans, or Khoisan medicine that became known as Dutch remedies? What was the imported knowledge that was brought here by slaves, for example? South African cuisine that has slave roots, language. A posthumanist lens asks, what role did non-human actors play in the development of South Africa, for example? So like well-placed land, gold and diamonds had agency. And a genealogical lens asks how things developed as a process. So for example, we may see how a specific type of architecture, like this Corbelled architecture, developed. So in explaining more about what we do, I thought I would try to tell partial stories of some of the sites that we've been working on. 5.2 million years ago, there was a rich concentration of animals that lived in this area, which would later become the West Coast Fossil Park. Bones of some 200 types of animals, many of them new to science, were discovered here. One of the most common mammals was the civetheer, the short-necked, long-horned giraffe. And in June last year, right, Roshan? Yeah. We scanned the fossil beds, and that's Roshan there in his socks, taking pictures of one of the fossil beds. And the final result is metrically accurate, high-resolution 3D models. And the full resolution models are quite impressive because you have millimeter accuracy. You can see things like tracks on teeth, and you can even see the smallest bones. So for each excavation, we produced a high-resolution 3D model. And here's one of the models that we published on our Sketchfab collection. And you can take this tour by going from one point of interest to the next. Like here's a seal flipper. You can go to the next one, a civetheer rib, a whale vertebra. You get the point. What's interesting is not much work has been done on these bone beds. Less than 5%, I believe, of the skeletal material has been studied. So there's many stories still to tell here. And Roshan has been scanning some bones at UCT, and we have a growing archaeology department collection on our Sketchfab collection. So that's the, wait, where's the address? Oh, it's, sorry, here we go. That's the address, sketchfab.com. If you go there and you look for Global Digital Heritage or GDH Africa, you'll see our full collection. And we have the largest collection of heritage 3D models in the world, over 10,000 models. So the next story takes us to Piers Cave in the Fish Hoek Valley. We collaborated with the Fish Hoek Valley Museum and Iziko on this one. We went there earlier this year and we 3D scanned the cave, which is on the mountain there behind us. And according to archaeologists, there have been people living in Piers Cave for perhaps 200,000 years, an extremely important site, the only rock art site in the whole of the Cape Peninsula and Cape Town. But the art, of course, is underwhelming because it's in a very bad state of preservation. There are very few caves in the country that have yielded the full sequence of evidence from early through to middle through the later Stone Age. And the original excavation of the cave was done in the 1920s by Victor Piers and his son. They were enthusiasts, not trained archaeologists. They used spades, picks, dynamite to excavate. And here's a page from the Cape Times of 1928 covering the exciting find. As I said, it was a haphazard excavation and the record keeping was not well done, but 6 meters of material was removed and most of it tipped down the mountain slope those of you who have been there will know that you can still find stone tools if you just dig around there. So we produced this Fishhook, we produced a Piers Cave virtual experience, which we've recently published on our website. I'll share the link with you if you're interested. And this virtual experience showcases our 3D models. Just wait, there's a 3D model of the cave itself, and it's combined with 360 panoramic photos. This is the rock art, so you can click on the hotspots and go to the rock art, and they've been enhanced by the D-stretch filter. You can also have a look at individual objects that have been found in the cave and explore the different models. There's some more rock art. This is a watercolor painting. This is a nice one. This is a Piers sketch of the cave, superimposed over the location of the cave at more or less the height at which the sand was. Okay. And archaeologists today lament the destruction of Piers Cave. Why do we know more about the white middle class of the early 20th century who lived in Fishhook than the ancestors who occupied this place for hundreds of thousands of years? Here's an interesting quote. It says, "What a strange fate to have overtaken the dead of Piers Cave. The lessons here are all in one direction. We send up our voices to the cave on the hill. In the answering echo, we only hear ourselves." So how much more would we know about our First Nations people and culture if the human remains were not disrespected? Here's a newspaper article that Ezekiel cringes at, because human remains, the skeleton of a baby, grotesque way in which it is, in which these people were shown. Okay, the next story takes us back 120,000 years, also to the dawn of humanity, to Sibudu Cave, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, important for the evidence of early modern human behavior. And we created this panorama tour of the cave. Sibudu was occupied from about 120,000 to 38,000 years ago, an exceptionally clear stratigraphy with more than 50 well-preserved Middle Stone Age layers containing lithics, ochre, faunal remains, some organic cultural remains like the first evidence of bedding in the world. And yeah, so you can see it's basically 360 photos that have been stitched together, but you can also go to the excavation itself and you can click on it and it will show you the stuff that archaeologists like. Okay, so we have a YouTube channel containing a video about Sibudu Cave, and I think it's a good educational resource, so like and subscribe. Okay, our next story takes us to 1796 on a farm that is now located near to UCT. A windmill was built there on the farm Welgelegen, owned by Gijsbert van Rienen, and it was 1 year after the British took control of the Cape from the Dutch. And although the archive states that it was built by the wealthy Mr. van Rienen, it was obviously built by his slaves. What were the names of these servants who built this place? This medieval piece of medieval engineering. It was used to mill wheat. It is now the last remaining working windmill in Africa, more than 220 years old. So fast forward to 2020, the GDHA team, well, they were still the Zamani team at the time, because of COVID, couldn't travel, and they decided to scan something that was in their backyard. And this proved to be an incredible stroke of good luck, because an incredible stroke of bad luck was about to happen. You know about this, right? The UCT fire of 2021, which burnt down Mostert's Mill too. But because of the scans, the friends of Mostert's Mill could go through the information that these guys created, and they were able to build it. So the scans were useful in obtaining exact size and design elements of the mill. Here are some views inside the mill. By the way, these are not photos. These are views of the 3D model. You can see it's metrically accurate, but also photorealistic. Here's another view of the model inside the mill. So you can see this complex machinery. They were able to work it out and rebuild it. Here's another view. And then in May 2024, we went there and we scanned the mill. And here's our latest 3D model, cutting it through. And I'm getting some, because I'm based in civil engineering, I'm trying to kind of force fit a link between this and civil engineering. So some of my civil engineering students are looking at it from various points of view, like materials and structures and, that kind of stuff. 1862. In 1862, the railway line from Cape Town reached Maitland Cemetery, the largest cemetery in the Cape Peninsula. Later on, the South African Railways introduced 4 new railway stations. Cemetery number 1 was for European mourners. Cemetery number 4 was used for non-Europeans. The idea here is that the train would drop off the white mourners first, drop off the black mourners last, turn around, pick the black mourners up first, pick the white mourners up last, so that the whites had the most time to grieve. Silly kind of, petty apartheid. And then they were all returned to Cape Town. And at the request of the city of Cape Town, we scanned the All Souls Chapel, which is this nice little church that's situated in the Maitland Cemetery, but they fear it's falling into disrepair because people have not been using it since COVID. We made a 3D model of it. Niam, can you just pass the model around? Maybe people can have a look at it. Yeah, so we 3D scanned it and then we 3D printed it again. So an interesting thing about this one was that we found Mother Mary here on the altar, and I found her hands in another room. But what is nice about the scanning is that we're able to bring the two together. We're able to recreate her, even though she doesn't have wrists, you can see. But in fact, at first we were not sure whether it was like this or like this, but it's probably like that, right? Yeah. So so this idea of virtual reunification, there's many possibilities for it. African heritage objects are scattered all around the world, but they belong at home, of course, or perhaps with their partner objects. For example, there are royal objects from the Hlubi kingdom in different places. Like this is Chief Langali Balele's axe and a mat that came from his wife, which are in 2 different places, but perhaps they can be brought together via virtual reunification. 1901. How are we doing for time, by the way? We all right? Okay. 1901, a remarkable scientist called Henri Foucault presents a paper to the South African Philosophical Society. The paper is called On a Stereoscopic Measurement of Photographic Surveying. It establishes the new theory of 3D measurement and mapping. He was the first person to postulate the theory of stereophotogrammetry, which is the production of maps from stereoscopic photography. And here's a book that was written about his life, remarkable man. And in 1904, he took a pair of photographs of Devil's Peak from Signal Hill. And here is the historic pair of photographs with the historic map, which is the first instance of photogrammetric mapping in the world. Later on, organizations all over the world, national mapping agencies would base all their work on photogrammetry, which was invented in Cape Town. We're very proud to say. So Foucault bequeathed his equipment and the historic map to the Department of Surveying at UCT. So for those of you who are at UCT, go to the 5th floor Menzies building. It's in a stuffy old cabinet. Everyone ignores it. But that's the first map in the world that was ever produced from photogrammetry. There's a 3D model of one of these pieces of equipment that you can find on our Sketchfab collection. Linked to that, we are currently in the process of mapping the National Geospatial Information Museum in Mowbray. NGI used to be called Trig Survey. Those of you might know them by the name Trig Survey. They have a very important museum which contains artifacts related to the mapping of South Africa. And we're growing the collection. Other collaborations. First Nations rock art and landscapes. Here's Elands Bay. A lot of you probably know this site. There's Roshan and Herbert, our American boss. And on the right is the original and then the de-stretch version of the rock art. We went to Cedarburg and we scanned Stadsal, and that's Bruce with a mobile 3D scanner on his back. We get to play with some cool toys. This is an interesting site, and it contains, on the one hand, beautiful rock art of people and elephants, and on the other hand, it contains historical graffiti done by D.F. Malan, one of the architects of apartheid, and his friends. So Malan would have obviously looked at that rock art in a very specific way, and we're kind of judging both at the moment also. Of course, John Parkington, Jeanette Deacon would have written a lot about this, and I'm also very interested in the significance of elephants to Khoi and San society. So I might be asking some of you questions after this. Time Ball Tower, you know the site at the waterfront? Very interesting. It's a sort of a precursor to the noon gun. So we went and we scanned that. At the moment, the ball is not on the Time Ball Tower. They're refurbishing it. Overseas, the team created a 3D GIS for the Sharjah Archaeological Authority. It's GIS, but it also has 3D capabilities, which is cool for GIS nerds like us. So you can see the 3D models, you can interact with it, you can see the 360 photography, go into the cave, look around, and then fly from one site to the next, all in sort of this continuous 3D landscape. Okay, Deba Fort. Roshan can tell you more about that. He went there. I didn't. Okay. Petra. This is the big one that we are working on at the moment. Roshan can also tell you about the computing power that we need to be able to produce models of Petra. But I'm going to go past that. The last story takes us to Cape Town and Stellenbosch during apartheid. So I was working at CPUT before I was working at UCT. And at the time, when I first started lecturing, I was teaching GIS. And one day I was walking around campus and I knew that I was in District 6, but it didn't feel like District 6. Somehow, the apartheid government did a pretty good job of erasing it, but not completely. So I wondered what was here before. And when I say what was here, like exactly here, as I was walking, who walked here, who lived here, etc. And then I approached the District 6 Museum and I asked them if they wanted maps. So for those of you who have been to the District 6 Museum, it's got the main exhibition area has got a historical map on the floor. And they said yes. So over the next few years, I mapped District 6, and I'll take you through very quickly. 1945, it was fully built. 1953, fully built, but the residents didn't know what was about to hit them. 1968, 2 years after it was declared a whites-only area, you can see a little section there that was cleared, demolished, as well as the N2 highway was demolished, and the highway was built over it. 1977, you can see most of the western section was demolished, and 1983, war zone, looks completely destroyed. And this is more or less, well, 2019, but it looks more or less like this today, with a few people having returned, and a few phases of restitution housing that have been built. So what I thought about a few years ago was I approached someone, this lady, that's her in the middle there wearing white. Her name is Linda Fortune. She wrote this book called The House in Tyne Street about her childhood experiences in District 6. And I asked her, did you know where you lived? Like exactly where you lived? I'm a surveyor, I can tell you exactly where you lived. She said, well, I think so, but actually she thought she lived on the grass there. And I marked it out. That was my student on the top right. And I marked it out. I took her through the ghost of her house. Incredibly emotional experience for her, as you can imagine, because, she worked out, okay, this was my lounge. My father sat here. My mother cooked here. I slept exactly here. And then this got me thinking about this methodology. And I coined the term counter-surveying. I wrote about this was my first paper, counter-surveying, haunted walks of District 6, propositions for counter-surveying. And at that time, that was more about giving people the experience of walking through the ghost of their home, for example, right? And then subsequently, I did this counter-survey with Mark and Isabel, Mark Jacobs and his sister Isabel. That's Mark in the back there, standing in the toilet in the back of his house, and Isabel standing in the front room of number 6 Eckhart Street, which was their home. And here's the ghost of their home superimposed over the exact location of where it used to stand, with the 2 children who are now old people standing in the ghost of their home. After this, I got to thinking about the value of this methodology. And then we started speaking to people in Defluctor, which I'll get to. But after showing them the site, we took them back to UCT and we showed them the maps. And I said, tell me your story. Who lived next door? So we put a dot on the map, and then we captured his story. Who lived next to that? Captured it. So whatever he knew and she knew, actually these were the 3 ex-residents, was Mark, Isabel, and Nadima. And they told us stories. So we started growing the spatial archive of District 6, and we're still growing it because I'm still very active in the District 6 area. And of course, we're able to do this because of things like surveying, GIS, we're able to overlay the maps on top of each other, etc. I then got to thinking about the methodology, and we approached people in Defluctor in Stellenbosch, and we asked them, what do you want? Do you want to be shown your house? They said, yes, but we want a map. We want a map of Defluctor. And I said, okay, I can help you to produce a map around your area. And he was like, don't worry, I knew everyone in Defluctor. I said, okay, let's go for it. And then I wrote the latest paper has been published recently. You can see 17 September 2025, where we formalized this methodology of counter-surveying. So we did the counter-survey of Mr. Russ's home. That's him on the top. The bottom left is his home with his aunt standing at the front door of his home. And the bottom right is him now standing in the exact location of where his aunt was standing, with obviously his house not there anymore. I think that's student housing for Stellenbosch University. So much of Stellenbosch University was built on top of Defluctor. this was the methodology itself. My student who did her master's on this formalized it. These were the steps: the recruitment, preliminary phase, fieldwork, map study, reflection, etc. And then the fieldwork phase, here's Mr. Russ taking us through, you know, his house. He's like, okay, open the front door, close the front door. This was the lounge, and I slept here. I think my bed was there, and I said, okay, oh no, the table was there. I said, okay, let's put a cone there. My bed was here. I was like, no, it couldn't have been here because the wall was there. Okay, my bed was here. You know, I walk around the kitchen table. No, not the kitchen, the lounge table. And then I would go to kitchen. My mom sat right there. This was her stove. This, you get the point, right? And then he's talking about the Roy Yard, which was this area in the back where people used to hang out, etc. Now, this is what we knew about Defluctor before we started the project. We knew the locations of several important sites, and that is a Defluctor map overlaid over a 1960-something map when everything was still there. And this is it overlaid over the current map of Stellenbosch. Much of the sort of bottom right area is Stellenbosch University. And then after speaking to Mr. Russ, I couldn't believe it. This was the map. 300, he remembered 323 places in Defluctor, and he was forcibly removed at the age of 16. So he's an 80-something-year-old man now, and he remembers everything. Talk about elephants, memory of an elephant. But he showed us 275 residential homes with the names of the people and maybe a story or two, 17 community buildings, 7 municipal, 26 retail. So we recently had a session in Stellenbosch where we handed over the map, and we're going to have a follow-up session with them pretty soon. Another project, the last project that I'll tell you about, is the St. Mark's Memory Mapping Project. So we, in St. Mark's Church in District 6, we found these baptism records going back 100 years. And we're able to put the dots on the map because there was, in the baptism record, an address field, an address column. So these were the babies who were born in District 6 in the 1950s. And of course, every one of these babies would have been kicked out of their homes. And we produced this memory, St. Mark's Memory Mapping Project, where you can click on the name of the baby who's now an old person. You can interact with the map. You can, you know, click on a point and it'll tell you something about Esther's life, for example. There's the cinemas. That's a home, community center, photographs. You know, it's a combination of various things, photos, audio, mapping. Kind of similar to what we did in Pierce Cave. Although Pierce Cave is a lot better now because it's got the 3D functionality in it. The next steps. So with regards to our work in District 6, we're going to hopefully release a virtual experience like the Pierce Cave virtual experience that combines the past and the present. We're currently we're going to be scanning the Al-Azhar Mosque in District 6. And with our parent organization, GDH, we will embark on the largest LiDAR survey of archaeological sites in Africa, using the technology to identify pre-colonial South Africa farmer settlements, starting in South Africa and extending to other countries. Mandy, we've already collected some data in the Northwest Province in places like Maratodi and Kadechweni, and we will be announcing the initiative with Sarah soon. And thanks to Simon for your help on this so far. And I'm looking for a master's student to work on this project. Well, Mandy and I are, so hopefully we'll find someone. So lastly, as you can see, mapping and technology can help to tell stories, big stories of empires, of long periods of oppression. And we can zoom into the small, to the untold, to the hidden, to bring to the fore stories of individual places, buildings, and the effects on individual lives. And we are very happy to collaborate with people. So if you would like to collaborate with us, please drop me an email. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for your attention.
Okay. So there are questions.